Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Taking my shoes off, getting comfy. Oh, welcome to this Virgo full moon live stream. The Virgo full moon. Fulla, could you do me a favor and put in the chat the date and the degrees? I think I have them in the description box. I think that would be super helpful. Yeah, the Virgo full moon. This will be the follow up to the Pisces new moon that we have coming up at the time of recording this. It's very soon happening in Pisces. The sun is entering Pisces on February 18th, and the new moon will happen just shortly after that, very early on at 1 degrees of Pisces. So, over this coming weekend, I believe. Um, Good morning. Over this coming weekend, we'll have our Pisces new moon. And for more in depth on that, check out one of the most vulnerable live streams I have ever done, which was the one 2 weeks ago, where basically I talked about like all of the things that I regret from my life. And that seemed like a brilliant idea at the time and led me to one of the most powerful vulnerability hangovers that I think I've ever had, which in all of its unfolding is absolutely beautiful for how the Virgo and Pisces axis work together. Thank you so much, Fola. The full moon is happening in Virgo at 16 degrees 40 minutes on March 7th, 2023, which would be 4:40 a.m. Pacific. So that'd be like 6:40 Central, 7:40 Eastern. Make sure to adjust for your time on the planet. But 16 degrees of Virgo, I would definitely check out where that is for you, and what part of your chart that is lighting up. Keep in mind, like that full moon, that's going to square the other mutable signs. It's gonna trine the other earth signs. So it's gonna light your chart up in a way that's unique to you. We're all going to experience this full moon in Virgo a little bit differently. But on this live stream, I'm going to give you some pieces of Virgo energy and contrast that with Pisces energy. Like, how does this axis work together as a whole? Um, and so to help us understand, because when we have the full moon, every time we have the full moon, we have the sun in the sign that it's in at that time. So, like at the time of the Virgo full moon, the sun is always in Pisces, and then we always have the moon opposite. That's what creates the full moon. So, we have the full moon exactly conjunct the earth at 16 degrees 40 minutes on March 7th. That's when we're having the full moon. So, the full moon conjunct the earth in a sign automatically lights up that entire axis. So the full moon videos are turning into a really fun time to contemplate like each axis as a whole. So we're going to do that again today for Virgo Pisces. So with the Virgo full moon, I'm going to go through first some high level pieces of Virgo energy and talk about like the best of the best. Obviously, like with every single sign, there's light side and dark side. There's really beautiful qualities and there's really obnoxious qualities. That's true for every single sign. And I think Virgo can get a little bit of extra heat just because, like, they have a tendency to poke on other people's buttons. I totally get that. Um, they're very driven, like Virgo energy is a very driven energy. So if you have a concentration of Virgo energy in your chart, like not only are you driven, but you tend to push the people around you to be a little bit more driven than they would otherwise be. And so you can see where maybe that gets a little annoying. But at the same time, like nothing gets better without Virgo energy. Virgo energy is where we grow. Virgo energy is where we improve at our job or like our skill. The word job and the word work have kind of a negative connotation. If you look around, like, um, gosh, what is it even called? Like the subreddit anti-work. Like people friggin' hate work. I'm the opposite. I love work, but I have a very different relationship with work than maybe a lot of people do. Um, Work is where we get to make our unique contribution to the world. It's where we get to hone our craft and deliver something that the community needs, right? Like we get to make life better on this planet because we show up to work. And if you're sitting there thinking, my job sure doesn't sound like that, then maybe you have the wrong job. Like if you don't love your work, maybe that's more around like what you're choosing to do on a daily basis, like Virgo rules routines and like what we do on a daily basis. And if there's not that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, like I'm contributing something special to the community, then perhaps there's something deeper that is wanting to come through you. Um, so Virgo, like there's just like again, with every single sign, there's all kinds of different facets, but like one of the main facets that I think is gonna be at the heart of everybody's full moon experience is self-development. So again, going back to like Virgo Pisces, in Pisces, we merge into one. There's like unity of all. There's a sense of we are all extensions of source energy. We are all essentially one soul. That's a very Pisces angle point of view. And then on the Virgo side, each individual self has a different set of skills, has a different set of responsibilities within the community. Um, it's, like, helpful to think back to, like, tribes, like, when there was, like, a closed tribe, like, a closed community, and, like, some people grew the food, some people raised the children, some people taught the children, other people, like, yada, 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 like, everybody has their unique contribution, and so when we talk about self-development, what we're talking about is essentially, like, honing your craft. Like, what are you good at? What makes you uniquely skilled? What craft is it that you possess? And then how do you improve it? What is it that you're working towards? How are you developing yourself? And again, I think you can see like how exciting these questions are for me. As a Virgo South node, self-development is like my bread and butter. Like I can just go to town on some self-improvement, self-development. I do prefer self-development over the term self-improvement. That just popped out of my mouth. But I think there's a big difference. There's a big difference between improvement and development. Improvement makes it sound like you're not already good, like you're not good enough yet, and that's why you need to get better, so we need to focus on self-improvement. Self-development, on the other hand, at least how I think about it, is like kind of the complete opposite. Like you are so valuable, you are so incredibly valuable that you are worth the time to invest in getting even better. So, the reason we do self development is because we're proud of our craft. We're pleased as punch at the contribution that we get to use our craft to make to the community. It's exciting to be of service. Again, as a Virgo South Node, I'm probably real biased when it comes to all of these things. I would love to hear what your relationship is with self-development, and, like, kind of that continuous improvement, growth mindset kind of slant on how you're already living, because I think that is gonna kinda determine the rest of, like, what your full moon in Virgo manifestation looks like. Like, for example, let's say this self-development is a spectrum where some people, like on the far end of this extreme, they love self-development, like they're constantly learning and growing and practicing and developing new skills, and they have a mentor and they're getting coached and they're seeking feedback and they're incorporating feedback, they're working on their craft. So like that's one extreme over here. And then there's the other extreme where they, like, it's not just that they don't seek out feedback on ways that they could develop, but they're actively rejecting those ideas as they come to them. So, like, on the opposite extreme is something of a paralysis that's like, I'm just going to stay the same and I'm just going to keep doing what I know how to do. And like, my craft is this, and this is how I know how to do it. So, this is what I'm going to do over and over and over again. Virgo ruling routines. It's like the shadow side of Virgo is to kind of get stuck in like a loop of whatever routine you've got going on now because you're rejecting the feedback that would help you to grow. And if you're open to that feedback, if you're open to growth, the routine itself continues to grow and evolve because you continue to grow and evolve. So I say all of that to lay down this foundation of like, when we have the Virgo full moon manifestation, it could look like, let's say you are on this extreme of like more closed off to self development, not wanting to change, not wanting to grow. It could look like some feedback that is probably for your highest good that you are very closed off to. And that is also undeniable at the same time. Like, it's really in our highest good. And again, I could be so biased on this. It really is in our highest good to continue to grow because uh, because, right? Like everybody can have their own relationship with it. But for me, I feel a resonance with the way Abraham Hicks describes it, where, like, as we live our life and as we experience the contrast of the world, we launch new rockets of desire into our vortex. And those rockets of desire instantly become. They instantly have like life force energy of their own and they're existing. And if we're not growing and keeping up with what it is that we want in our life, I mean, the depression, the lethargy, the lifelessness that can result in staying stagnant is enough to make anybody eventually want to like figure out like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? I'm miserable where I am. What do I do? And so that misery, that deep dissatisfaction can actually be the catalyst to like grow. Like, what do you want? Let's start walking towards it. Let's do the Virgo thing where step by step by step by step, detail by detail by detail by detail, we create what it is that we want. We can have anything, but if we're not building it, if we're not developing it ourselves, depending on the rest of your chart and the rest of like your unique design, some stuff comes to us and some stuff is only going to be ours if we make it. And that, like, what's in each pile is kind of different for everybody. But I think everybody has something inside of them that they want, that it requires Virgo energy to build, which is to say, like, it requires some deliberately focused attention in order to build. So, self-development, like if you have a kind of a hostile relationship with development and growth, probably the manifestation, like the full moon shining a light on that, it might look like some feedback that's really hard to handle. On the flip side, let's just go to the flip side, because if you are somebody who is in love with development, if you're somebody who just can't get enough, it could be something, it could be the exact same thing. Like, it could be the exact same thing. It could be somebody showing up who is able to deliver feedback that is undeniable, that is clarifying the growth that you wish to have. And maybe the positive manifestation of that is that that person wants to meet with you on a regular basis and continue giving you feedback like that. That sounds like best case scenario in my book, is that you manifest a mentor. You manifest somebody into your world who is willing to be honest with you for the sake of your growth on a regular basis. That in my book is best case scenario. And I wanted to double check the exact date of the full moon is March 7th. I have a meeting with someone on March 6th, and basically, I've only met them a couple of times, and I am just so impressed with what they do. I am like, you're my role model, whether you like it or not. And as many times as you will hang out with me and let me ask you questions, and like you'll tell me what you think about XYZ that I throw out there, like, oh my gosh, like, can I just pick your brain like on a regular basis? Will you teach me how you do that? How do you do that? Like, I think the difference between high vibe Virgo and low vibe Virgo is like when you see somebody who's good at something that you're not good at, what's your reaction? Is it, man, that sucks. They're so good at it and I'm not good at it. And like that's like that, and like, rawr. Or is it like, will you be my mentor? Will you teach me how you did that? How did you do that? How did you tell them all of those things with love? How did you do that? Like, are you in awe that, like, how did you do that? This person that I met a couple times, like the second time I met with them, I was so impressed after the first time that the second time I was a little bit more open and a little bit more like, I'm going to ask my questions, and the worst that they can do is say no. And so I asked my questions. I was like, what about this? And how did you do this? And where did you learn this? And so I walked away with like a whole list of book recommendations. And so far I've listened to two of them, the books that they recommended, and like changed my life. These books, and like, just that's just two conversations with this person. And so on March 6th, I have my third conversation with this person, and I am so freaking excited. And I have a feeling now that I see that the date is like so close together. I'm like, best case scenario, Virgo full moon, you manifest a mentor. You manifest somebody who is willing to contribute to your growth in a meaningful way. Um, that's option number one. I think another option that is often with Virgo is the idea of being of service. Like, Virgo is where we possess humility. Like, it's where, again, the purpose of ourself, it's very different coming off of Leo. Leo is very much like about ourself and our self expression, and giving ourselves a voice in the world, giving ourselves the freedom to play and create and just flow with whatever our life force energy is wanting from us in any moment. Leo is that freedom of expression. And then we move into Virgo, and Virgo is where the entire function of ourself is to be of service, is to take care of ourselves as much as we need to, so that we can be healthy, so that we can provide a service, so that we can make a contribution to the community in whatever unique capacity we possess. And so, like, being of service, that's another one where, like, the manifestation could be exactly the same. And on one hand, you look at it like, oh my God, I have even more work to do. And like, I'm already overworked, and like all of that. Like, that could be one side where life is bringing you, like, here, serve these people. And you're like, oh, I'm exhausted. I don't have the energy. Like, kind of, where are you at with your health? Like, if you're exhausted and you're already tapped out, you're maxed out, and then another opportunity to be of service comes to you, it's like, I can't do. On the flip side, though, if you've been taking really, really good care of yourself, and you've been prioritizing your health, and then an opportunity to be of service comes to you when you're sitting there with a full tank of gas and ready to go wherever the earth needs you to go at this moment, like, put me in, coach. I'm ready for it. So again, like, I'm seeing more than with any of the other full moons, like, the manifestations are probably in that ballpark, and they're probably the same. But how we react to it is a reflection of where are we at in our own energy. Where are we at in our humility? Where are we at in our health and our vitality, and taking good enough care of ourselves so that we can even think about being of service to other people? When we talk about being of service, and I hear people like, I don't have time, or I already give too much, I'm already overworked, I already put in too much overtime. It's like, a piece of Virgo energy. Oh, yes. A piece of Virgo energy is discrimination. So discrimination is like a dirty word in our culture, right? Like, discriminating is a bad thing. But all it means, like, if you take away everything that you think discrimination means, like, to discriminate means that you reject what doesn't work, that you accept what does work and you reject what doesn't work. And so discriminating against people on the basis of things like skin color or race or gender or sexual orientation or whatever, like, of course, that's not good. And so we think discrimination is bad because we don't want to do any of those things. But all that is like discriminating on the wrong for the wrong reasons. Like if you're discriminating against things that are bad for your health, if you're discriminating against work that does not pay you in fulfillment, if you're discriminating against places and people and activities that drain your precious life force energy rather than build it up or allow you to channel it in a constructive way, at that point, discrimination is wisdom. Discrimination is empowerment to say what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And so a piece of Virgo energy is like, do you like what you're getting on a daily basis? Because if you don't like your daily routine, then probably some discrimination would help to make it better. Because you don't have to just take whatever, whatever it is. Like, you get to design your daily routine to suit you. And that includes, if your work is unfulfilling, then find fulfilling work. And if you don't believe you deserve that, or if you don't believe you have access to have that, potentially some self-development of some kind. Like, I do also want to direct you guys back to an exercise that I posted on the channel a little while ago called Toolbox of Traits. And I want to talk about that here because, like, what do you have to offer? What tools do you have in your toolbox? This is a very Virgo type conversation. What tools do you have in your toolbox that you can use to be of service to people? And, like, let me tell you, like, you know, some people, I think one of the interesting pieces about the exercise is that some drawers that you fill out on the thing are going to be, well, let me tell you even what it is. I'm starting in the middle of the thing here. Start at the beginning. Begin at the beginning. So the toolbox of traits. We drew on the paper like a rectangle, a square, or whatever on the whole paper, and then divided it into two different columns and then 14 drawers. So there's 14 drawers on the toolbox, and each drawer is labeled with something different. Like, the first drawer is people skills. The second drawer is resourcefulness. I don't technical know-how. There were 14 different drawers on the exercise, and you have 1 minute to just brainstorm. What are the tools? What are the skills that you have that fall into each of these categories? And some of the drawers, as I heard back from people who took it, like, some of the drawers are like packed full. Like, one person and like two different people had the complete opposite experience on the first drawer, people skills. The one person was like, "Oh yeah, I had like 20 things. Like, I ran out of room in my box and I had to like start writing them on the side." And then the very next person was like, "I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of any people skills that I have. I don't think I have people skills." And so my point with that is, one, you get to see kind of where you at and what do you have that maybe you're already feeling masterful in your craft. Like, that first person felt really capable and confident in her people skills, and the second person didn't. And so, like, the difference between skill and talent, skill is something that you build, and talent is something that you're born with. So every single one of the drawers can be improved. That's kind of the whole point, is like people skills, technical know-how skills, like all of these different skills. It's like those drawers, the really full ones, they show you what you've practiced the most and what you've spent and what you've spent the most time investing in practicing and developing within yourself. Those are the drawers that are really full. And the drawers that have nothing or very little in them, those are the areas where you haven't spent as much time practicing as in other areas. And there is no right or wrong, like, let's say you had an empty people skills drawer and you decided that I don't even need people skills. I don't care. I don't care about not having people skills. It's when you realize that, like, I think what's holding me back is my lack of people skills, that you might decide what I want to start developing within myself are people skills. And if you want that, let me recommend a YouTube channel to you. Let me find like the exact name, and then maybe Fola can grab a link for us. It is called Free Online Communication Training. Free online communication training. This guy's name is Dan O'Connor, and he makes free communication training videos, and he calls it tactical communication because he's giving you tactics. Like he gives you the actual words. Like he's like has you practice saying certain things like while you're watching the video. And he's got lots of different like topics or whatever. Like if you find yourself in this situation, like you might want to say something like this. And so like practicing and developing your ability to communicate in different kinds of situations. Like this was a skill that I ran into recently where I received communication from someone that basically like I did not feel capable of responding to this communication. Like I'm just wide-eyed and in shock because oh my God, like I can't believe they said that. And I don't know how to respond. I feel like I don't have the people skills to respond in this situation. Enter Dan O'Connor and free online communication training, because not responding isn't a choice in this situation. Like normally that's my go-to. If I don't know how to respond, I just don't. But not responding in this situation was not a possibility. I manifested a situation where a response is necessary and I don't know how. And so in that gap of skill, free online communication training. I've watched, I don't know, maybe 20 of his videos in the last week of like trying to teach myself like how do you respond when people insult you at work? How do you do that? How do you do that in a way that leaves you feeling good on the inside? Not like you just like they attacked you, so you attacked them back. Like that doesn't feel good. Been down that road before. So, how do I handle this in a way that feels good to me? I don't know. So, when we don't know how, that's where, like, do you want to learn how to build the skill or do you not want to learn how to build the skill? And again, nobody has to learn anything. You don't have to develop any of the skills. Like, if you're happy not responding in that situation, then don't respond, don't learn the skills. No big deal. But when you realize that one of those empty drawers is what's holding you back, then maybe there's some intentional self development that you want to engage in. And when I say that, I mean making the time. Like, I'm going to spend 10 minutes a day watching one of these free online communication training videos. I'm going to pick a new one every morning during my morning time, and I'm going to make sure that I watch that and just continue to practice. Like there is such a thing as carving out the time. And when people say I don't have the time, that's always really interesting to me because we get to choose, right? This goes back to that Virgo and discrimination piece of like we get to choose. We get to discriminate against the things that take up our time that we're satisfied with and the things that take up our time that don't satisfy us. And if there's a lot taking up your time that doesn't bring you satisfaction, again, I have to ask the question like, do you like it like that or do you want it to be different? And again, it doesn't have to be different. But Virgo's a beautiful energy where if you want it to be different, you can make it different. If you want more people skills, you can learn. You can study. You can spend 10 minutes a day for every day for a year, and you can have wildly different people skills than you did before, or communication skills, or whatever it is that you're working on. That's just one example that I'm working on lately. Um, I'm practicing lots of skills all the time. Um, and it's all just a matter of like, what would make me even better at my craft? What would make me even more capable at being of service to the community? So that's kind of where all of this kind of circles back around together, the self development piece, the being of service piece. Like, we're investing in our own continuous improvement so that the service we're able to provide is continuously improving into better and better and more and more. especially with the Virgo full moon and the sun in Pisces, there is there is a divine purpose that goes so far beyond the physical details of the service that we provide, which is to say, like the physical details of the daily life we choose to live. There's a divine order behind it all of putting you in the right place at the right time. And like you can't even appreciate, like maybe Pisces season is the time of year where everybody can appreciate it a little bit more, this interconnectedness of all things. But like each of us individually in our skills, in our own desire to grow, in our own desire to develop and get better and become even more skilled in our craft, there is a divine order that is being supported in that. Where like I think back like on my work and how, moving out of education into work and what has unfolded in that time, where I am now, and all of the different skills that I've practiced to get to where I am now, like it got built piece by piece by piece by piece. Like I feel like if I had known like where I'm standing today and all the things that I've had to learn, if I knew all of that way back when I was getting started, it would have been so overwhelming. But it's not like that. Like in Virgo energy, all we can ever do is the step that we're taking right now. Like I'm only one human being. There's only so much I can do. I only have this one foot that I can put forward, and then I got this one other foot that I can put forward. And that's pretty much all I got. That's all I can do. And so finding like what is the thing right now, like what is the limitation that you're facing right now that's holding you back, and what is the skill that you could practice, that you could develop within yourself to be able to not necessarily get the challenge to go away, but such that you would be able to rise to meet the challenge in a way that feels good to you, like studying communication styles or whatever the solution might be that you're wanting to develop inside of yourself. Um, a different example from the Virgo full moon last year, this was like, this was probably the first full moon where I ever like really understood what does it mean that like the full moon is about manifestation. And so maybe by the end of the story, like if the jury's still out on that one, there's still a question mark, maybe this helps answer that for you too. But like the Virgo full moon, I don't even think I was paying attention. I don't even think I knew that it was the Virgo full moon while this was all unfolding. But I was sitting in my office one day, and well, one day, it was the Virgo full moon of last year, 2022. I was sitting there, and it was probably about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the thing that I was hitting up against was I, I want to be of greater service. I want to help. I want to help, but I don't know enough yet. It just was too big. I couldn't move forward because I don't know enough yet. And the self-development piece that came, what downloaded in on that Virgo full moon that I'll never forget, was like basically I hear you that you don't know enough yet to do whatever it is that you think in your mind you need to do. But tell me this, what do you have right now? Like you don't know enough yet. What do you know right now? Make a list. Make a list of what are the things that, no, you don't know everything. Maybe you don't know enough for what? Maybe we'll never know. But okay, but what do you know? Let's come back to the known and let's make a list of what do you have. And again, that's where the Toolbox of Traits exercise can be really helpful. What is it that you already do have? And from that, like it's kind of like a MacGyver type energy of like, you may not have the exact right tool that you think you do, but you have a lot. And what can you do with this? Like maybe you don't have super glue, but you have this chewing gum and this duct tape, and like we can rig something and we can get creative and we can make a solution using the resources that we already have. And so I started making that list. I was like, well, natal charts. I mean, I know a decent bit about natal charts and human design. Yeah, I know about that. Ooh, I've done this before. I've set up like a online booking site and like started giving readings. I could talk about that. And so I just started making a list of like, what do I know about? And when I had that list, I was like, I mean, I have 8 things here. I could do an 8 module program starting a spiritual business. I could do that right now. I know enough to do this program. Like if I was going to have one module on each of these things, I could do that now. I could do this now. Oh my God. I designed the whole thing and I put it out there shortly after that. And 3 months later, it was like July something, 2022, we met for our first session. And it ended up being a 13 module program that I did with this same group of people. And it went from July of 2022 through January of 2023. And like, if I had continued to believe, if I had just let myself continue to be stuck at, I don't know enough yet, I never would have facilitated that program. The people who participated never would have got to participate in that program. I know I got like a shit ton out of it, like as far as my own self-development, because almost instantly I get into it and like within the first like couple sessions, I have what is like a little meltdown moment because I've bitten off more than I can chew. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to handle this. I'm stuck. I'm hitting up against this limitation where I don't know how to do this. And at that point, same as always, like, I mean, do you want to give up? Because you can. Like, there's nobody saying you have to learn. But the other option is that you stay stuck or just give up altogether. And in my opinion, in my experience, like, neither of those options have ever felt really good to me. Like, when I find a challenge and then I let the challenge win, I just get this like gross taste in my mouth. That's not for me. So I would rather like learn some shit and like figure out, okay, so like, how do other people do this? I need a role model who can teach me how to handle XYZ because I don't know and I'm feeling real overwhelmed by it, but let me study this. And so I studied coaching questions basically was the tool that I had never studied before. And I pulled down like all the lists of coaching questions that I could possibly find. I wrote them, I read them, and then I wrote them out of memory. And I would just do brain dumps where I would write down as many coaching questions that I could remember from memory. And I did that. Like I would get up to like 100, 200 questions a day where I'm like writing these down out of memory. And then the next day I'll do it again. Just write down the questions that I can remember because I'm trying to program myself. Basically, what it was like I'm trying to program myself that instead of feeling like I have to fix everybody's problems for them, I'm trying to program myself to have curiosity be my response. To go into fix it mode is killing me. It's hurting me. I'm struggling. I can't do it this way. It's not working. I'm discriminating against fix it mode because it's hurting me. You're not good enough to be the fixer of everybody else's problems. That's not your job. So like what is the alternative? Oh my God, how do I deal with this? How do I do this? I don't know. Coaching questions. How do people like what do you do when somebody is presenting a problem that you don't know how to solve? And what I learned was one, it's not your problem to solve. It's their problem to solve. Like as the facilitator, as the coach person, that's not your job. So like it was a fundamental misunderstanding of what my work was that first needed to be cleared up. And then I stepped more fully into what is my work? What do I do when I show up to the space? If it's not to fix their problems, what is my job? It's to get them thinking. It's to open up considerations and contemplations that maybe they hadn't considered it that way before. And so to do that, I'm not trying to tell them what the solution is. I just need to ask the right question. I just need to prompt in the right way. And so that led to me studying coaching questions and like, how do you get good at asking the right questions? And so that practice is still very much ongoing. I try to remember to ask a question every time I can when somebody is presenting me with a problem. My fix it nature, I mean, I just instantly go into problem solving mode, and almost never is it your job to solve the problem. And so just kind of like backing off of that and getting better at letting the problem exist without trying to solve it, and just trying to shed light on the problem through questions so that whoever's responsibility it is to solve the problem can do their job in a more effective way. Look, I helped. I helped. It's not my job to solve the problem. I just have to shine a light on it. So, doing that group coaching program, I feel like gave me so much opportunity to study and to hone my craft and to study listening and to study communication and to study problem solving and to study group dynamics and to study like how to be the leader and facilitator of a conversation, to study like how to get people thinking versus just talking at them. Like I got to study. I got to get better at so many different things thanks to doing that group coaching program. So, like last year, 2022, I think my Virgo full moon manifestation was, well, I know for a fact it was coming up and like giving birth to that group coaching program. And through that unfolding of the group coaching program, I mean, I had to seek mentors. I joined a coaching program by Matt Kahn. I studied The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. I studied Byron Katie's work on Is It True? I had to grow in order to be able to do the work that I had signed up for. And that's kind of uncomfortable a little bit, depending on who you are, to like sign up for the work and then have to grow while you're doing the work. That's one way to do it. You can also just grow on purpose, and then eventually your work will come around and you'll have to use the skill that you built up previously. So I mean, it's like whatever. It doesn't have to look a certain way for each, like for all of us. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. Um, but yeah, the group coaching program was kind of like my mentor. Like it wasn't exactly a mentor. It didn't exactly teach me, but it gave me the lesson plan. It gave me the curriculum of like learn this stuff. And so I went out and I found my teachers and they taught me a lot of really awesome stuff that benefits me in all of the service that I provide, right? Like the piece that we're learning at any one given time, like it might feel so small, like it might feel like, well, but I want to be all the way over there. I want to know all of these things. And it's like you can, but to get there, we got to do the Virgo thing of like step by step by step. So you got to learn this one little piece, and then you get to learn this one little piece, and then this one little piece. And one piece after one piece after one piece after one piece, you get all the way over there where you know all these things. So whatever one little piece it is that you're working on developing within yourself right now, or that is coming up around this Virgo full moon, whether you manifest a mentor outright, or you manifest a project at work, or you manifest a new friendship, or you manifest like a situation in your family, or like whatever it is. Like I said, everybody's is going to be different, but you manifest something that forces you to grow. And whether or not that's a good news, bad news situation, I think depends 100% on your perspective, your opinion on growth. So, yeah, that's my spiel on the Virgo full moon that is coming up on March 7th. I am going to hang out for just a second. If you do have any questions that you want to send through, I would be more than happy to help answer those as best I can. Um, Uta says, Carly, just wanted to send you some love for what you've contributed to my life. Uta is one of the members that I met through the group coaching program, and she's one that I met who I had never met face to face before. Several of the members of the group coaching program this last year, I had met through our sacred circle. So I had been getting to know them over Zoom for a few months when we started the program, but a few of the people that joined the group coaching program I had never met before. And so, like, to just even think back to that moment of, I don't know enough yet. And I was so just like annoyed because I wanted to do it. I want to do a group coaching program. I want to be of service. I want to have this experience, but I don't know enough yet. And I got like pissed off enough to be like, enough for what? Like, know enough for what? Like, what do I know right now? And just like bring it back into the moment, like the right here, right now. What do I know right now? And let me make a list of those things because I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot on there that I have already learned. There's a lot that I've already practiced. And maybe it's not as much as it will be someday because I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly practicing. But where I am right now is already valuable. Where I am right now, where you are right now, is already valuable. You've already learned a lot. And probably the next logical step is something that uses the things that you already have and combines that with what would you like to learn next? That's best case scenario, like the group coaching program was for me. Like best case scenario, I get to do these things that like I already know, the content ish, like what I want to do in my modules, but the facilitating the group, the being the coach of 9 people at once, like I'd never done that before. And that was totally stretching my boundaries and totally forcing me to grow. And there were moments that were uncomfortable, like hard. It was hard. It was a challenge. But I think growth often feels like that, like growth often feels like we're stretching beyond where we're capable of going. And that's how we know we're growing. When we feel that stretch, when we feel the growing pains of like, nope, don't know how to do that yet. And it's like, okay, even though I don't know how, I can still practice. I can be the beginner. I can be a student. I can say, I don't know. I don't know how to ask good questions. I don't know how to not fly into fix it mode when somebody gives me a problem. Like, I don't know how to do that. So let me practice. Let me get better. And believing that we're capable of getting better, I think is also somewhere in the heart of Virgo energy, like believing that we can learn. Um, I personally think, like, you know, again, there's no right or wrong answer. Like, you don't have to learn anything. But if you had to learn, choosing something that you're genuinely interested in, choosing something that you're genuinely curious about is the way to go. Like if you're sitting there with your job going like, I don't want to learn. I don't want to get better at that. I don't care. I don't want this. Then that's probably not the right fit, like that's just not the right thing. And that's okay. That goes back to like that discrimination piece of like you get to say what you want and what you don't. Or like I don't really care about that. Like the one that always comes to mind for me is like I had to transfer the my website from like one hosting to a different hosting. That's as much as I know about that. I hired somebody to coordinate that project for me and paid them like $15 an hour to coordinate the project for me. And I paid somebody else like $50 or $60 an hour to actually move the hosting from one place to another because I have no desire to learn any of that. I have no desire to even talk to the professional who's going to do the work for me. I don't want any of it. It doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't fill my cup. It doesn't charge my batteries. I have no curiosity to learn any of this. No, I'm not going to do it. I would rather pay somebody to do that work for me. I would rather pay somebody who has that skill to do that skilled task for me than have to learn it myself. So if you have no desire to learn what it is that's in front of you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But just as far as a life choice goes, as far as the daily routine part goes, personally, I would think aligning yourself with what you do want to learn makes the most sense. Like if you've ever heard the saying that it takes 10,000 hours to master something, how are you going to practice for 10,000 hours if you don't genuinely like what you're doing? Like if you don't genuinely care about people or like communicating or building relationships with people, it's going to be really hard to become a master at that, given that you have to spend 10,000 hours practicing communication and building relationships with people. Like, I want to be a master. I want to be a master at it. So I practice everywhere I can. I practice in lots of different situations, but that's because I want to master it. So I'm willing to spend the time because I want to get really good at being in communication and being in relationship with other people. So, like, it really just comes back to like, what do you want? What do you want to learn? What skills do you already have? What skills do you already have that you want to get even better at? That's another example. Like, my public speaking is one that falls in that category for me. I've been practicing public speaking since I was 7 years old when I gave my very first speech in my 4-H club. It was 2 minutes long, and I was talking about the tote bag I made and how I picked out putting a teddy bear on the front of it. That was my 2-minute speech at age 7. So that was the beginning of practicing public speaking. And still, I make a point. One of the reasons that I show up to live streams and that I make videos and I make podcasts is because I practice my speaking. So, like, I'm trying to work up to 10,000 hours of like being a master public speaker. And I don't know how many hours I've practiced over the years. It's a lot, but I think it shows. I think it shows. I've got some skill at public speaking. And hear me when I say I will never be done developing this skill within myself. I am always practicing. I'm always looking for feedback from people who have this skill, who are better at it than I am. Tell me how to get better. I want to know. I want that feedback because I want to get better. So I that's a lot. That's a lot around just Virgo energy in general and how beautiful it is when we choose to not give up, when we run into a limitation, when we choose to develop our skills instead. That is just such a beautiful choice. And the ripple effects that come off of it, you just can't even know the difference that you're going to make in the entire world by learning the skills that you learn, that you take the time to invest in yourself to learn. Dear friend, thank you so much, everybody, for logging in today, for catching the replay, whatever you're doing. I wish you the very best Pisces season, the very best Virgo full moon. I would love to hear from you what you're practicing. What kind of manifestation did you get on the Virgo full moon that like is pushing you into having to grow and learn and study these new skills? As you can probably tell, like, you need a cheerleader on that journey, like, this is your guy right here, continuous improvement cheerleader. That's my number one job on this planet, both for myself and for others. So if you are interested in anything like what I'm talking about, as far as like looking for someone who can give you some honest insight into how you might be able to grow, that's essentially what I do for a living, right? So, like, I do spiritual readings, but also on my professional side, like, I'm basically a leader for hire. Like, I help clarify the vision of like, where are we going? What are we trying to build? And how do we realistically get ourselves there? And more often than not, that means that we're going to have to learn something new. We're going to have to develop a new process. We're going to have to create a new understanding or a new skill set, a new tool to help us do this job. Um, that's basically what I do for my day job. So if that kind of perspective would be helpful and clarifying, and you're like, hey, will you be my mentor on the Virgo full moon? I do have a couple sessions on my booking site for individual readings. If you're at all interested, feel free to check that out. Until next time, I hope you take such good care of yourselves. I hope you invest in whatever it is that you're passionate about learning or even just a little bit curious about learning. And just know I'll be doing the same. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.